Slavery ended 130 years ago. NFL legend Herschel Walker says black Americans should not be paid reparation and calls for forgiveness at congressional hearing. Herschel Walker argued against reparations for black Americans at a congressional hearing on Wednesday. He presented his case to members of a Judiciary committee who met via Zoom to discuss House Resolution 40. The bill aims to establish a commission to study and consider a national apology and proposal for reparations for the institution of slavery. Remember before when they used to have every president apologize for slavery? I think that stopped at Obama. Not even a half apology, if you get my drift. Trump didn't do it either, if I recall. I bet you Biden would do it, though. He'd get on his knees and do anything you asked him. Walker asserted that compensating black Americans is impractical. How many African Americans was alive today that was in slavery? None, he said. Reparations teach separation. Hey, that's nice. I like that. Catchy, he added. Slavery ended over 130 years ago. How can a father ask his son to spend prison time for a crime he committed? The athlete also questioned where the money would come from and how the government would determine who should receive it. Herschel Walker, if you don't know, big-time football player, 80s, 90s, and he was still fighting in MMA, if I'm correct, up until maybe the past several years. Haven't kept up with it. I don't know if he's still active, but I remember there would be videos of him going around, like I said, maybe 5 years ago, where he was in his 50s and dude was still jacked. So that's a guy that definitely kept in shape. NFL legend Herschel Walker argued against reparations for black Americans at a congressional hearing, saying slavery ended 130 years ago. The athlete, who played for the University of Georgia, won the Heisman Trophy in 1982 before going pro, asserted that compensating black Americans for the lasting impacts of slavery would cause more harm than good. We use black power to create white guilt, Walker, a longtime friend of former President Donald Trump, told the subcommittee. My approach is biblical. How can I ask my Heavenly Father to forgive me if I can't forgive my brother? America is the greatest country in the world for me, and for me too. It's the greatest fun place. And if you don't think so, then you haven't lived in many other countries. This place is so great. We have it so good here. And I hope that most people get that. A melting pot of a lot of great races, a lot of great minds that have come together with different ideas to make Americans the greatest country on earth. There's Herschel right there. I think his son, again, if I'm not correct on this, let me know, but I think his son has come out in support of Trump as well. Walker went on to rant about the impracticality of reparations, given that slavery was abolished so long ago. How many African Americans was alive today that was in slavery? Which is none, he said. So I go to some of the older people for experience, and I remember my mom mentioning, how could we pay for your great-great-great-great-grandfather being burned to death? Or how could we pay for your great-great-uncle being hung? Is that true? Is that really true that that happened in their tree? God, that's fucked up. Wow, if that's true, that's sad. I understand that those pictures are horrible, Walker said, referencing photos of beaten slave and lynched black Americans that H.R. 40 sponsor, Rep. Sheila Jackson Lee, Democrat of Texas, presented at the start of the hearing. Here's some photos meant to garner this kind of emotional response to pass something because they know that they don't have the argument and the facts on their side. Something so long ago that you have to dig 150 years into the past for photos. And yeah, it sucks. That definitely sucks if that was in Walker's family lineage, for sure. And that sucks for all the people who had family members had to go through that at that time and have that in their family tree. But the reality remains that you can't piggyback off of somebody else's pain for your own personal gain. I wasn't trying to be funny. That just came out on the spot. And that's what you see with a lot of these newer feminist movements. What is it, third or fourth wave we're in now, they tell me? I don't know. I lose track. But it's people trying to act like things of the past happened to them. They're trying to channel this energy from things that happened so long ago. You hear these people talk about it. You hear these rich athletes, these rich rappers trying to talk about this stuff, try to rap about this stuff like it actually happened to them. Like they live that pain, like they deserve something for it. It just amazes me how you can disrespect somebody else's memory by pretending those things happen to you. All the while you're profiting off of it somehow. But right now I think the fact-finding is going to be very difficult to go back over history when history is not even taught in school on what we're trying to, in fact, find. He continued, where would the money come from? Does it come from all other races except the black taxpayers? That's an interesting point, right? Would they give them an opt-out? Nah, no, I'm good. I just want to receive. Who's going to want to pay that stuff, right? What black person would be like, yeah, let me pony up a little something as long as I get more back in return? Can you imagine if they did that, though? They're like, yeah, you know, Asians, Latinos, whites, Jews, whomever, who weren't even here, who didn't have family here at the time, that you've got to pay more now. It wouldn't surprise me if a majority of Democrats were good with this. We'll see what happens when they find out that they have to chip in $1,000, $2,000 each to make this happen. Who is black? What percentage of black must you be to receive reparations? Do you go to 23andMe or a DNA test to determine the percentage of blackness? There's Hirsch and Donnie. There he is with the Cowboys. Big trade eventually that sent him to the Vikings, which allowed the Cowboys to build their dynasty. In large part, reparations teach separation, Walker concluded. Slavery ended over 130 years ago. How can a father ask his son to spend prison time for a crime he committed, which is what they mentioned above? But you know, individuals like Sheila Jackson Lee, she doesn't care about this. You can't ration with people like that. I bet that she would be somebody out there on the forefront who would be trying to come up with a way to enable herself to get more financial gain, even more so than other individuals. If she didn't have, and this is just me being cynical about politicians, if she didn't have any family ties to this, she would still be trying to find a way for her to personally benefit to the tune of $100,000, $200,000, while, you know, other blacks who actually had descendants of slaves, oh, you know, here's $1,000 check. Oh, wait, a $1,400 check, $1,200 check, black reparations stimulus check. Begs the question, would somebody like Kamala Harris be able to receive, or would she be on the side of individuals who have to pay, given her family history? It raises so many interesting questions, doesn't it? I feel it continues to let us know we're still African Americans rather than just American. And that's what I always laugh about people who love to refer to themselves as African American. Unless you were born in Africa, you aren't African American. To me, other people, they like to claim this kind of title. And that's how we do it. Everybody has to have a title, right? Asian American, gay American, straight American? No such thing as that, right? Trans American, white American, Mexican American. Everybody needs a title. Every group has to have a name. Every subgroup has to have a name. It just cracks me up. But if you're from Africa and you came here and immigrated to America and now you're an American, then you're an African American. If you're just some black person who was born here, you're an American, baby, just like me. Come on, bring it in. You're an American just like me. Walker was joined in the opposition by talk show host Larry Elder, who argued that systemic racism is not the main problem. And Larry Elder is a conservative individual. Obviously, there are black people who are poor. The extent of which the poverty is a result of slavery and Jim Crow is tenuous at best, Elder said. The larger factor behind black poverty is the absence of fathers in the home. Boom. And you know what? That raises an interesting point that many on the right will say is, when you come up with a number, what if they came up with a number, okay, we figured it out, who's going to get the money? Say it's $10,000 going out to individuals of 100% blood who can show a lineage. Does that one-time payment do anything? But what if you come from a situation where you don't have positive role model, where you don't have positive role models in your house? You don't have a two-parent system. You don't have somebody, a family member, somebody educated to teach you the ropes with that money. What about individuals who are in those circumstances? There could be a lot of those, just like there are a lot of individuals of every race. What happens to those individuals with that money? That's just a one-time thing. How quickly would they blow through it? Not knowing how to manage the money, how to properly put it to work and make it work for you. That's something that, with any kind of financial windfall, people need a basic financial education. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Finance background, finance degree, yada, 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 master's in business administration. I know. Shut up. No, but seriously, people need to know how to properly manage their money so that they don't get into this repetitive cycle. Is that too much to ask? Elder also called for reparations for slavery, the greatest generational transfers of wealth back and forth, because virtually every people on the face of the earth was involved in slavery, and that's true. We do know from our history, although I don't have a ton of knowledge, I know that there was a lot of African slave trade involving Europeans as well, North Africa, a lot of slave trade through the Caribbean, and I believe there was a lot of it going through South America as well. I always say, just as a side note, why not focus on the slavery going on right now, that being related to the sex trade industry. But I'm just a simple man with simple wishes. Rep. Burgess Owens, a freshman Republican from Utah, used the venue to place blame on the Democrats for most of the U.S.'s sordid racial history. True, party of the Klan. It has not been an American problem. It has been pretty specific. When you think about where slavery began, where segregation, where Jim Crow, it's always been the Democratic Party, Owens said. Again, boom, dropped it on him. Oh, no, we're different. No, that was those Dixiecrats. We're different. How party flips. Earlier we mentioned 40 Acres and a Mule. That was ended by a Democratic president, Andrew Johnson. We talked about the KKK. That was a Democrat terrorist organization that was actually ended at the end of the 1880s, but brought back again by Woodrow Wilson. In 1915, he continued. Those facts I'm not too sure about. I don't know much about my Klan history. Don't delve into that stuff. I stay out of that space. Owens, one of just 2 black Republicans in the House, called reparations impractical and a non-starter, and said it was unfair and heartless to give black Americans the hope that this is a reality. The reality is that black American history is not a hapless, hopeless, race oppressed by a more powerful white race, he said, calling the current inequities the failure of policies. And that's the debate, right? Is it systemic? Is it policy? Is it historical? A lot of nuance there. It's a large discussion you can have. Democrats led by Jackson Lee brought in their own array of witnesses to support the bill, including academics, civil rights leaders, and California's new Secretary of State, Shirley Weber. The resolution to study reparations was first introduced by the now late Rep. John Conyers in 1989 and was named after the 40 acres and a mule that freed black Americans had been promised, but then the federal government didn't act on. It would greenlight a commission to study the issue. The article goes on a little bit more, but let's wrap it up here. Let's get on with some comments. Well said, Mr. Walker, again. Must be under enormous pressure from the cancel culture crowd, the Marxist organization that cannot be called by name, the 1619 Project, that's Black Lives Matter, and the like to toe their preferred narrative. History is history. We can only learn from it, not change it. Brave man for speaking up, but he has made himself a target for the haters. That's true. Internet trolls. Nobody's going to step to Herschel and say anything. At least not man to man. Nobody's going to try to get him up with Herschel Walker. Believe me, he would handle that business if somebody tried to step to him. Offense is taken at the slightest issue by people looking to be offended. A voice of reason in the wilderness. I like him. At least someone who is brave enough to speak some sense in all this madness. Slavery is still going on today, and that's the issue people should sort out. Not what went on in the past, and that's what I was talking about. Sex slavery. And I've heard that there is an active slave trade. I don't know anything about it. Is it the Middle East? Is it still Africa-based? I don't know. I've just heard the basics about it, and I haven't looked into it. So if anybody has any input on that, let me know. Oh, here we go. I was going to look for something, a comment from somebody who was against Hirsch. Here we go. Trump-loving idiot. Canceled, somebody says. And that would be somebody trying to be cynical, I believe, but people still downvoted it. Anyway, everybody, those are my thoughts. I think reparations is a joke, and I think it's a grift. I think individuals out here trying to bolster their political careers, like Sheila Jackson and others of her ilk, grifters, I don't think they really care. They're in positions of power. They've got so much money. What do they care? It's a way for individuals like her and white guilted liberals to try to stay in power by continuing to toss out some breadcrumbs here and there. Oh, we're fighting for you. Here's a couple more breadcrumbs. Remember, when you go to vote, keep voting for me because more breadcrumbs. Take care, everybody. Have a good week, and thanks for watching.